Welcome back to Night Tales Hub, where we present you another compelling tale of passion and unforeseen connections. Do you appreciate these intriguing stories? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories. Hello, my name is Diana, and I'm a 42-year-old stepmother who never imagined I'd find myself caught in such a complicated web of emotions. My husband, Edward, is a highly successful businessman who is often glued to his phone or buried deep in work. While I genuinely appreciate his dedication to his career, it frequently leaves me feeling isolated and neglected, longing for the connection we once shared. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself yearning for companionship and intimacy, craving the affection, the warmth of a tender embrace, and the excitement that came with feeling desired. My thoughts often wandered to my stepson, Julian, a striking 24-year-old who had recently moved back home after completing his college education. Julian had consistently demonstrated respect and politeness, making him a reliable young man. However, there was an undeniable chemistry between us that was difficult to ignore. He had blossomed into a remarkably handsome young man, and I often found my mind wishing for the day when I felt beautiful and desired. I made my way to the bedroom, hoping to lose myself in thoughts of what could be, allowing my imagination to run wild for a while. Just as I was about to put on a silk robe, I heard the door creak open unexpectedly. It was Julian returning home earlier than I had anticipated. "Hey, Diana," he said. My pulse raced as he stepped inside, a bright smile on his face. I instinctively grabbed my robe to cut myself, but it was too late. Julian's eyes widened at the sight of "I'm sorry." I didn't want to interrupt him. Stammered, his gaze lingering on me just a moment longer than appropriate. "It's fine," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. I was just changing, and a flush crept up my cheeks as we stood there in awkward silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. I could feel a shift between us, an electric current that was impossible to ignore. Julian shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his eyes flickering back to mine as if he were thinking about something important. "I should probably go," he eventually muttered. I took a step back toward the door and shouted, barely audible, "You don't have to leave, we can." He hesitated, his gaze searching mine. The simmering desire felt almost tangible, and I knew I had to take a risk. "Julian, I've been feeling a little lonely lately. It's hard being here without Edward around. I know we haven't really connected like we could," he replied, his voice low and serious. "It's been strange to be so busy all the time." I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of courage. What if we spent some time simply the two of us, to my surprise? A smile appeared on his face. "I'd enjoy that." Drawn by an invisible force, I went closer to him, the gap between us diminishing until we were only inches away. I could feel the warmth emanating from his body. "Our chemistry is obvious," I muttered gently. "Julian, I want to be really honest. I've thought about you more than I should have," he said, edging closer, jittery eagerness in his voice. In that moment, all my anxieties vanished. I moved in, catching his lips with mine. The kiss was cautious at first, but it gradually intensified, kindling a fire within me that I hadn't felt in years. His hands found their way to my waist, pulling me closer as we melted into each other. I broke the kiss, breathless and exhilarated. "This is so wrong," I murmured, my heart racing with confusion and excitement. "But it feels so right," he replied, his voice husky with desire. Before I could think about the consequences, I pulled him back into another kiss, my fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss quickly turned more passionate. As we parted ways, I peered into his eyes. Seeing the same combination of excitement and anxiety mirrored back at me, I said, feeling breathless and alive, "Are we really doing this?" He answered firmly, "Diana, I want you to hold my chest and bring me closer. I've desired you for a long time," and with those words I felt empowered, fueled by a need I couldn't hold back. I moved back slightly and took his hand, leading him toward thee. The moment felt surreal, but I was ready to embrace it wholeheartedly as we sat on the edge of the bed. I leaned in closer to our lips, meeting again with more urgency this time. Julian's hands roamed my body, exploring every curve as I melted into his touch. I could feel the heat building between us, igniting a fire I hadn't felt in years. My fingers traced along his jawline, and I could see the desire, burning brightly in his eyes. With a nod, he leaned in again, kissing me deeply. I could feel him pressing against me, his body hot and eager. My hands explored his chest, feeling the solid muscles beneath his shirt. The thought of wanting more filled me with excitement. Slowly, I pushed him back onto the bed, rattling him as I kissed him with urgency. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with surprise and excitement. I never expected this. He breathed his hands into me and answered in a low, seductive voice. But it feels too good to stop now. As we continued kissing, I could feel him responding to my every touch, our bodies moving in perfect harmony. I began to slide my hands under his shirt, exploring his toned abdomen and feeling the warmth of his skin. He let out a soft groan, which sent shivers down my spine. "God, Diana, you're incredible," he whispered. I liked the way he looked at me, the need in his eyes boosting my confidence and making me feel alive. "I want to feel you," I muttered, my voice thick with want and craving. "Then let's not waste any more time," he whispered, his hands finding the hem of my robe and slowly pushing it apart as I gasped at the sensation of being exposed to him. A rush of excitement poured over me. "You're stunning," he whispered softly, leaning in to plant a kiss on my collarbone, igniting a passion within me that quickly grew exponentially. As the heat intensified, I surrendered to the moment's pleasure. His hands roamed over my body, igniting every nerve ending as he kissed down my neck, sending waves of pleasure coursing through me. I let out a soft moan, arching my back against him as he continued his tantalizing trail of kisses. I urged my body, craving his touch with an insatiable desire. Newfound confidence. Julian sat up, his hands gripping my waist as he turned us, pinning me against the bed. His eyes sparkled with mischief and desire as he leaned in for another kiss, capturing my lips with fervor. I could feel his weight pressing against me, and every moment felt electric and charged with anticipation. In a moment of boldness, I grabbed his tool and was taken aback by his size. It was so big that I couldn't hold it anymore. He started moaning, and I wanted him more than ever. We lost ourselves in each other, the world outside fading away as we lost ourselves in each other. The world outside fading away as we explored our deepest desires. The room was filled with soft whispers and the sound of our bodies moving together. Every touch, every kiss was more intoxicating than the last. As we tangled together, I felt a sense of freedom and liberation I hadn't experienced in years. I desired to delve into every aspect of him, fully immersing myself in the present moment. Our bodies moved in perfect harmony, igniting a fire that consumed us both with passion. Eventually, as the intensity simmered, we fell into a comfortable embrace, catching our breath. I looked into Julian's eyes, feeling a sense of joy and excitement I hadn't felt in so long, but just as I started to relax, the doorbell rang again. "What was that?" I asked, my heart racing as the reality of our situation dawned on me. "It's probably your husband," Julian said, his eyes wide with panic. "Edward wasn't supposed to be home for hours," I exclaimed, scrambling to fix my robe. "Quick, we have to hide," Julian urged. We got up hastily, attempting to pull ourselves back together. Just as we were getting halfway decent, I heard Edward's voice coming from the hallway. "Diana, are you home?" he cried out cheerfully. "I'm in the bedroom, utterly unconscious of the drama that's occurring." I yelled out, my pulse beating as I stared at Julian, who appeared to be as anxious as I was. "Stay quiet," I said hurriedly. Julian nodded, hurriedly ducking into the closet as Edward Avid stepped through the door. Edward entered with a smile on his face as he saw me. "I didn't expect you to be home. How was your day?" he said, approaching closer. "As usual," I responded, faking a grin and attempting to appear as normal as possible. "How was yours, as usual, busy?" he replied with a sigh, "but I thought I'd take a break and spend some quality time with you." I nodded, feeling a mix of guilt and excitement. I could still feel Julian's presence lingering in the air, his warmth and the thrill of our shared moments. I had to push those thoughts aside as I tried to engage with Edward, who seemed oblivious to the tension hanging between us as the evening progressed. Edward and I settled onto the couch, sharing casual conversation, but my mind kept wandering back to Julian and the electric connection we had just shared. My heart raced every time I thought about it, igniting a fire within me that I couldn't ignore. A few days later, while Edward was out for another late-night meeting, I found myself alone at home again. My thoughts consumed with the memory of our last encounter, I missed the thrill of being wanted to feel alive. I decided to take a long, relaxing bath to ease the tension, hoping it would help calm my racing thoughts. I lit a few candles and filled the tub with warm water, letting the steam envelop me as I soaked. I found my mind drifting back to Julian, and the way his hands explored my body with passion in his kisses was intoxicating. I felt a rush of heat at the memory and knew I needed to see him again just then. When I heard the soft sound of a knock at the door, my heart skipped a beat, and I quickly wrapped a towel around myself before opening the door, revealing Julian standing there with a mischievous grin on his face. "Hey," he said, his eyes sparkling. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," I replied, my heart racing. I was racing at his sudden visit, and as he walked into the restroom, I felt a surge of exhilaration from having him so near again. "I was simply having a bath," I said, silly, trying to hide my nerves. "It looks inviting," he said, his gaze lingering on me as I leaned against the doorframe. "Frame mind, if I join you," I hesitated for just a moment, my heart racing at the thought of being so close to him again, but the thrill was too strong to resist. "Sure, why not in an instant?" Julian stepped into the bathroom, closing the door behind him. The atmosphere felt charged with anticipation as I watched him slowly undress my breath, hitching as he revealed, drawing me closer as I tangled my fingers in his hair. The kisses swiftly deepened, full of passion and need as we lost ourselves in the moment. I could feel the warmth of his body against mine, creating a fire that ran throughout me. "You're even more beautiful than I remember," Julian whispered against my lips, his breath warm against my skin. I smiled, feeling flattered. "And you're more irresistible every time I see you," with newfound confidence. I pushed him back against the tub, straddling him as I pressed my body against his and the water swirled around us. But I was lost in the sensation of his skin against mine. My fingers traced down his chest, relishing the feel of his muscles under my touch. "Diana," he breathed, his voice filled with longing. "You have no idea how much I've wanted this to show me," I replied, my voice. So, as I leaned in for another kiss, this time it was more fervent in the world outside, fading away as we explored each other. The water mingled with our desires as our kisses became more urgent. I could feel his hands roaming my body, tracing every curve as I lost myself in his touch. The thrill of being so close to him sent shivers down my spine, igniting every nerve ending. I leaned back slightly, allowing him to kiss down my neck, flavoring the sensation of his lips against my skin. "God, Julian," I gasped, my body arching toward him, craving more with a low growl of desire. He chewed my face, his thumbs brushing over my cheeks as he pulled me in for another searing kiss. I could feel the heat building between us, a powerful force that drew us closer together, urging us to explore more. The water around us became a blur as we tangled together, lost in the heat of the moment. My hands explored his body, tracing over his shoulders and down his arms as he deepened. "Are you sure?" he questioned, his voice thick with desire. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." I responded, my heart racing with anticipation with that we moved together. the warm water surrounding us as we embraced the heat of our desires. We pressed against each other, our bodies entwined in the moment as the passion escalated, our breaths mingling as we lost ourselves in the pleasure of being together. Hours seemed to melt away as we surrendered to our desires, exploring every inch of each other, feeling the warmth of our connection, and growing. It was a whirlwind of Brink. I felt alive as I hadn't in years. But just as we were about to relax, the sound of the front door rang through the house, and we exchanged frightened glances toward Edward's house. And I yelled, panic rising within me. Quick, we have to get out of here, Julian said. Scrambling out of the tub, we both hurriedly dried off and threw on our clothes, the tension palpable as we tried to make ourselves presentable. Just as I finished adjusting my hair, I heard Edward's voice call out, "Again, Diana, I'm back," he shouted. "We need to hide," Julian said urgently, glancing toward the door. I nodded, and we both ducked into the closet, our hearts racing as we heard Edward enter the bathroom. The two of us stood close together in the darkness, our breaths mingling as we waited for the tension to dissipate. Edward began to wash his hands at the sink, oblivious to the chaos that had just unfolded in his home. "How was your day, Diana?" he inquired, his tone easy and soothing, and I responded with my pulse hammering in my chest as I exchanged an anxious glance with Julian. After a few tense seconds, Edward finished and exited the bathroom, enabling us to breathe a sigh of relief. "Wow, that was close," Julian muttered, his eyes bright with excitement. "I can't believe we've only just started." But before I could finish, he leaned down and kissed me tenderly, reminding me of the excitement we had just had. "We can't stop now," he murmured, his voice low and urgent. "This is only the beginning." My heart raced once more, caught between the thrill of our secret and the realities of my life with Edward. Yet I firmly believed that whatever was transpiring between Julian and me was irresistible. The tension hung in the air as we emerged from the closet, electric with possibility, and we both realized our lives would never be the same. The thrill of the forbidden lingered, and I was prepared to delve deeper into this unexpected romance, regardless of the consequences.